titled Food for the Boss. Thank you for your attention and God bless you.
The Deputy Vice Chancellor of Development, the Registrar, all the principal officers of the university, Dean, Head of Plant Science and Crop Production, members of SAFE and other colleagues, my lords spiritual, my lords temporal, friends of the university, special guests, fellow scholars, distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the press, great Funaab. As the chairman of this occasion has rightly presented the title of my presentation for this the Inaugural Lecture of the Federal University of Agriculture on behalf of the College of Plant Science and Crop Production is titled Fruits. Food for the birds. As you know, that's a rhetorical question, and I hope that in the course of this lecture, I'll be able to provide enough information to be able to help you make an informed decision as to answer whether yes or no. For starters, fruits. A fruit is a fertilized ovary or a rapid ovary along with its contents and inherent structures. The fruit is formed following the pollination of the stigma by the pollen from anthers. Gibberellins in the pollen trigger of the production of oxygen from the developing seeds within the ovary, and leads to the development of ovary cells and the surrounding tissues, resulting in fruit and nurture. There are myriads of fruits, hundreds of them, thousands of them, different in shape, in texture, in color, and in flavor. Some of them are poisonous, some of them are inedible, some are edible raw or semi-processed, and some are edible only when they're thoroughly processed. There is a diversity of fruits. They can be classified in all sorts of ways. I'd like to draw your attention to this fruit, Tamarindos indicus, which we call Samia in Hausa, and this other one, passion fruit. Of course, you know what Pomology already, you know avocado, you know cashew. I just like to tell you that cashew, that point, I'm putting a cross on, that's not the fruit. That's the fruit stuff. The real fruit is the nut, that hard part. So much about diversity. Let's see how many of this you can recognize. The cola nuts, the cocoa, and many others. Fruits can be classified based on their morphology. When a fruit contains just one seed, it's a drupe, like mango leaves. When it contains many seeds in a single ovary, then it's a berry, like banana or guava. When fruits are sourced locally, when they belong to the locality, then they are classified as indigenous fruits. But when fruits are introduced from another ecology and need intensive management to make them fruitful, then they are classified as exotic fruits. Some fruits contain hardly any moisture. They are dry fruits like the baobab or buka in Hausa. Some fruits are very hard, like cashew and coconut. Some fruits split just around one side, like the coconut. Some fruits are made up of many ovaries on a single axis, and they form multiple fruits, and an example is a grape, or a guinea, common spoilers can read. The other fruits that are formed by many ovaries on the same axis, which fuse together to form resources after fertilization, and form an aggregate fruit, and an example is pineapple. Now, it might be interesting to know that fruits predate man. It doesn't matter which account you believe, whether you believe in evolution, which teaches us that the earth came into be by accident, and our great-grandfathers were apes, and we are a good version of apes. Or perhaps like me, you believe in divine creation. You believe in the account that says God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. That's what I subscribe to. But no matter what you subscribe to, in all the chronologies of creation, plants create man, therefore fruits create man. The good news is that fruits were created for the use of man, as I shall show in subsequent slides during this presentation. Nonetheless, fruits are remotely linked with the troubles of man, and ask me why. Simply, you remember the Garden of Eden. You remember how Eve was fascinated by the forbidden fruit. You remember how the serpent deceived her. She ate of it. Her husband Eve as well. God wasn't pleased with her. He expelled her from the Garden of Eden, and he said, "Cursed is the ground because of you. You bring the toy, you will eat of it all the days of your life." Before we start wagging an ugly finger at Adam and Eve, isn't it true that possibly in this gathering there are men, or who knows, women, who in their younger days entered people's house without being invited, scaled walls to pluck mangoes or pawpaw, some climbed to the top of trees with the dexterity of well-trained commandos to pluck the fruits. Some were lucky to escape from hurt. Others suffered broken limbs, POP. Others were caught and received a few strokes of the headmaster's cane on the back. Such is the passion of fruits for some people. Nonetheless, some people also are fruits are worthless. They're useless. They're good for nothing. They're food for the infant. They're food for babies. They're food for weaklings. Or they're for the birds. A Yoruba adage goes, "You live the darling. Here is our machine. And you live there. Whether it's Funaab, and I little man, now the truth is that in reality, fruits have a lot to contribute. When the issues of food security are discussed in this station, commodities like rice, like maize, like yams, and recently cassava make it to the top list. But the truth is that food can be good sources of food. If I use plantain as an example, plantain contains 31% starch. And anyone who is a good cook knows that that is good material to turn into a couple of things. Furthermore, it contains 2% fiber, which aids digestion. It also contains potassium that helps with the electrolyte balance and controls blood pressure. I hope people are listening. I'd also like to share with you at a campus heterofibers. That's jackfruit. The jackfruit also is high in carbohydrates. It's low in saturated fat and cholesterol and sodium. Contains high vitamin A, vitamin C, calcium, magnesium, potassium, iron for the blood. Furthermore, it contains phytonutrients like lignans, isoflavones, and saponins, which act as anti-aging. I hope the ladies are listening. Anti-aging, always looking young. And antioxidants that fight free radicals in the body that trigger cancers. Furthermore, anticarbonates contain dietary fiber that aids digestion. That's the one that lists of the examples. Please have it first. Into juices. Passion fruit, sweet orange, and guava can be processed into nectar, and this can give you a wholesome drink. Fruits create jobs. You see the ladies out there, well, it's just incidental that I chose the ladies, the men too can benefit from jobs in fruits. But on my far left, and over the old far right, you can see women selling boarded citrus seeds. Next you see a woman, a young lady, sporting tissue for the plantain, and last but not the least you see the women filling pineapple juice in what is for sale. Those are objects of commerce. As you can see, pineapples, the aquarius that is called ube, agbanum is part of our region, and of course, a man selling oranges. A couple of years ago, there was talk about climate change, and people were laughing. They thought those who talked about global warming had too much wine. Years after, floods, flash fires, the threat of desertification, crop loss, told people that this is not a joke. And today, few people are laughing or striking. The truth is that global warming is here with us, and we have to do something about it. Global warming is partially caused by the trapping of ocean gases in the atmosphere, and one of them is carbon dioxide. I have good news for you. Fruits, because most of them are perennials, are busy working for you, taking the CO2 out of the atmosphere through the process of photosynthesis and converting them into useful products like juices, like starch, and other useful benefits. You might wonder how the pineapple made it on this list. Although pineapple fixes just 0.04 micromoles of CO2 per meter squared per second, while you're busy at night sleeping, pineapple is busy photosynthesizing. So that's how we made the list. Health and wealth. Health is directly related to development. If you have office workers that go to the hospital 3 days out of 5 weeks, and if they don't do so, they put their heads on the table, you know how easy it is to meet targets. The FAO has some advice for us, and it recommends that at least 100 milligrams of fruits should be taken by each person per day for the prevention of non-communicable diseases like ischemic heart disease, like strokes. And it reckons that up to 21% of ischemic heart diseases and 11% of strokes are caused because people fail to eat foods adequately. And that 2.7 million lives could be saved. So there you go. I'll give you a couple of examples of what is my point. I want to start with shea butter. It's called Pomology in Yoruba. My interest to know that this part, which is contained in the seed of the tree, or any, as it's called in Yoruba, is rich in vitamin A. It boosts collagen and moisturizes the skin. It contains vitamin A, which vitalizes the body, and it helps scars, minor wounds, and skin wounds to heal rapidly. I'd like to share with you that Agbalumo, cruciferum albino, and it's just way up the season, and it's rich in antioxidants, and because of its high value, it's recommended as a food supplement. Bush mango, Abeokuta gaboensis oro. This is a fruit that the balance praise themselves and say, I don't mind the wisdom or my video. I want you to know that this fruit has been compounded and is now being formulated into special capsules that helps people to lose weight without stress and to control their appetite. Talk about banana. Relieves constipation, tissue degeneration. Talk about pawpaw. I'd like to draw your attention especially to the last bullet there. It contains papain, which is a proteolytic enzyme, and is of use in the photography industry, in the leather industry, the chewing industry, and the beauty industry. It also contains lycopene, which is very, very good for protection of the skin against ultraviolet ray damage, and also in the control of prostate cancer. I hope many are listening. Pineapple contains bromelain, which is a proteolytic enzyme as well. And the highlight of what I want to present you is that this bromelain prevents clotting. And therefore, those who suffer stroke because of blood clots in their brain or vessels, I hope you take note. In spite of all the possibilities of fruits, I have not so good news. The standard of fruits in Nigeria is rather poor. But that's not far-fetched. It has to do with low productivity of orchards and groves, low consumption and utilization of fruits, weak farm market linkages, loss and high service losses, and I'm going to show you this about that later. Weak extension research linkages, poor input supply systems. Many a times those growing foods have to improvise, and I'll show you a few slides about it. And last but not least, the exploitation of indigenous foods like Agano, like Samia, like Upaka, like Ube, and lots of them. Now, post-harvest handling. If I have to buy fruits in South Korea, that's what I get. If I buy them in Ibadan, that's what I get. If I want to buy plantains in Ibadan, they come onto the market in trucks like this. But in other countries, they're stored away neatly in boxes and coolers. Now, I just want to recite to you things that you already know. How do you guys come to tell you stories of God? I want to assure you, Mr. Vice Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, that all of my adult have tried to be part of the solution. Starting from the time when I picked up the job with Lions in Uganda, that's in 1982. Today, I have given unbroken service to making fruits more available, and all the year round. And my contributions have spanned research, extension, research administration, and capacity building. And I'm going to share a few thoughts with you in a couple of moments. Now let's talk about water. Water is something everybody takes for granted. You think water is always there. I have bad news for you. The water resources of the world are almost, I would have said, fixed. But one good thing about global warming is that some of the ice in the Arctic is melting. So it's free of water for us. However, we must note that the world population is increasing astronomically, especially in the developing countries. These people are generating waste and really needing the waste plant itself into water. And so, in reality, the available supply of fresh water is decreasing. An example taking, don't be surprised, nations go to war over fresh water because no water, no life. Agriculture is a major user of water. But from the information I've just given you, I want to advocate that water should be climate smart. Water smart. I wonder what engendered my interest in water space. And as I think about it, it's probably because of my working life. I started working in Kano State. And those of you who have lived in that part of the world, you know what it's like. Today, I want to share a few thoughts with you about water space. A lot of us assume that fruits can get by without any care. Some of us don't think it unusual to water potatoes. Some of us will raise eyebrows depending on whether the pawpaw tree or a citrus tree or any other fruit tree. I'm going to show you some information on how to make up your mind whether this is rational. Simply, water space is a balance between the water requirement of the plant and the water it gets. And when there's an imbalance, that is the seed. Let's start with seed germination. Ideally, if you're a very diligent nursery line, you water the nursery every day. And you use a one-size-fits-all approach. Whether they're lemons, or papaya, or avocados, everything gets the same thing. You will have to go with it. Now let's start with purple on this line. If you water every day, you get the blue line. If you water once in 3 days, you get the red line. So, every day is not always the best. So if you water once in 3 days, you save water, you save energy, and you get higher germination. If you are a lazy nursery man, busy playing draft and noodle when you should be working, and you go to your nursery only once in a week, you get the green line. Let's see how that plays out with guava. And you see there's a big difference. Every day watering, the blue line is going to kill your seeds if they're guava. The interesting thing is that watering once in a week will give you the best results. Now, the import of this is that our nurserymen need to do a rethink about the way they water the fruits in the nursery. It's not just the germination stage that is sensitive to moisture. The vegetative growth phase is sensitive to the juvenile stage. I've just seen out the area in you. Now, if you irrigate your juvenile plants, once in 3 days, you get the green one. Once in 5 days, you get the red one. Once in 7 days, you get the green one. If you look closely at this graph, you see at about 6, that line goes down. That's because some of the leaves die. They just die because there wasn't enough water. And when enough water was supplied, there was compensatory growth. And if you reason from the fact that leaves are very important for photosynthesis, the logical conclusion is very, very straightforward. When the leaves are reduced, photosynthesis is reduced, growth is reduced, yield is reduced. Now, let's talk about adult trees already bearing fruit. Do they need water? Yes, they do. If you don't irrigate your adult purple trees, the purple line shows you that you're going to lose most of the flowers through abscission. If you do, you stay there. And that decline is not due to flower abscission, really. It's because the flowers are converted to fruits. Now, how does it play out on fruits? If you don't water your fertile plants, then you have premature ripening, over-ripening, and you be very, very observant. You notice them in dry seasons. It's either the fruits fall to the ground by themselves, or you are forced to harvest them, and you get the red one. However, if you invest in irrigation, you retain your fruits for longer on the fruit. You slow down the rate of ripening. Your fruits absorb more water, they become tender, they become tasty, and you get more wonderful value. I ask myself, how is it that water stress exerts its influence on fruits? And using data generated from yellow passion fruit, that is particular emissions, and carbon, are shown that if you apply little water, you follow my concept, you see, and an afternoon, you might get negative photosynthesis because the rate of respiration is higher than the rate of photosynthesis. The add more water than the system to improve. We add more than 75 liters of water per plant per week. Then photosynthesis is too. However, we add much more in your zeal, 1.5 liters, then you have counterproduction. And photosynthesis declines, not because there isn't enough water, but because there isn't enough air in the soil. The roots are starved of oxygen, they can't breathe the water. And the plants are not taking advantage of the seed that you present. This slide shows that water and light interact, and therefore it's not just water stress alone, but ambient light and the conditions under which the plants are growing affect photosynthesis. And this is data from Lemon, a study conducted at the University of Bonn in Germany. Soil stress. Whereas many of us are conversant with the symptoms of water stress, I guess salt stress, sound a bit strange. And it's what happens when salt accumulates in the soil. And I bet you're wondering, how will that happen? Are you going to add a little salt to soil? You eat salt? No, you don't. But the truth is that in the arid zones, farmers who work on irrigation schemes apply a lot of fertilizer. And those of you who are not on irrigation schemes will be out. The truth is that at the end of the season, the plant hasn't used all the fertilizer, and so the salt and the soil. With the heat of the dry season, the salt moves upward towards the soil surface with capillary action. And year after year, when that happens, you have an accumulation of salt in the soil. And then instead of the plant being able to take up water, because the soil is so salty, the salt in fact wants to remove water from the plants, and that is what you get. What's the solution? At the end of the cropping season, you apply enough irrigation water to leach out the salt from the soil, and then your soil stays healthy. And I dare to say that many of our irrigation schemes in the northern parts of Nigeria are, in a way, on the brink of coming up with symptoms like this. And a study which I conducted in collaboration with Professor Jeff Noder of the University of Bonn in Germany, we tried to find out whether we could determine a mechanism for detecting soil stress before they become visible to the naked eye. Reason being that by the time the symptoms are visible, the damage has been done. We looked at a couple of things. We looked at fluorescence, we looked at photosynthesis. We also looked at carbohydrate content of the meat. Now here's what we got for carbohydrate content. You can see what the profile of sucrose looks like. 1 week after the position of soil stress, you find out that in a reaction, the glucose content of plants that receive 30 micromoles of salt in the growing solution, the glucose content shoots up for an advantage. However, if you increase the salt further, the glucose content drops. But I'm telling you, I'm amazed about the capability of citrus to regulate itself because when next 4 weeks later, the product of the citrus has regulated itself. Of course, the glucose profile is a lot lower, but it just apart of something like a seed. There wasn't any source at all. On the last part of the after receiving the information, I done the analysis of the information. And one of the things I noticed was that a lot of farmers, like the fruit trees, where people were dealing with, I asked myself, why don't we farm? And given the opportunity that I have, using the all-back funds on a NAP project, I got to know that many farmers, in fact, intercrop their citrus with cassava and maize. I also knew that all the preaching that we need to them for them to stop, they were dead days. And so we were stopped. And the research institute, we wanted to promote monocropping. When our backs were done, the farmers were not going to agree. And we felt we had to play smart to keep our jobs. And so there was this experiment. First, monocrop is what we were originally promoting, which the farmers did not seem to want. The red hue there is cassava plus maize, which the farmers were doing, but which we knew the scientist was bad for them. What was our compromise? We developed 2 other possibilities. Intercropping the usual method called by soybeans, or intercropping with chili pepper. At the end of the day, we found out that when you intercrop citrus with chili pepper and amaranth, it's just as simple intercropping anything. The next slide shows you the cash profile. The reason why the farmers intercrop is that if you don't intercrop, this black line, diamond line, is what you get in the orchard. If you intercrop with cassava maize, it's a popular that you get and naturally comes to beat you. Then, when you have the possibility of the red line, seeing how cash comes in, you can be sure that this is a winner. And so what we recommend to farmers is that they should intercrop with chili pepper and amaranthus, that is amaranthus is a big name for it. And that in so doing, they can make more money without having the citrus trees. Intercropping also affects the weed spectrum in the orchard. How does it do this? We use information from population studies in plantain, and we found out that the higher the population, the higher the amount of light that is intercepted, and naturally, the amount of light that is available on the floor of the orchard, and that when due to increased leaf area index, is high light interception, the amount of weeds in the orchard goes down. So one benefit of intercropping, besides increased productivity, is that the weeds are also kept on home. Fertilizer use. My first job as research officer to fruits agronomy, baccalaureate substation. Some people are familiar with what that means. Was to tackle the issue of fertilizer use. I noticed that farmers are not using fertilizer in their fruits. I was fresh from the university, bubbling with ideas, and said, why not? If not, I wasn't sure
whether they weren't using it because they couldn't afford it or because they didn't know they had to do it. So I took a shot at this speed. I worked on Alahaba Safed and Work, spacing by beam with an related project, and I applied between 0.5 to 2.2 kilograms of NPK 15 and I found out how this affected the food tube. And my answer then was, well, it increased it a bit, but in my opinion, not as much as it ought to have. Of course, I was very young then, I didn't do the cash analysis. Perhaps I should be able to do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, for coming around, if I was speaking to NGCs, I would have been on the go. I'd like to thank the publication committee for doing a good job of work and translating my drafts into a reasonably good manuscript. I'd like to thank specifically Jim Fakol for taking my very weak and not so good overheads and transforming them into what you have seen today. I'd like to thank Oluwanisola Aiyelaagbe for overseeing this. I'd like to thank Olakunle for reading many versions of this. I'd like to thank my students too, who sat in here for the rehearsals and said, excuse me sir, you did do this one. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, there is somebody seated in this audience that I also know. Her real name is Funaab, the daughter of Mahmood, now the wife of Isaac Oreoluwa Aiyelaagbe. And over the years, by dint of commitment, by exemplary show of love, by prayers, by encouragement, by affirming, by looking at me straight in the eye when it is at everything and say, sir, you can't do that. I want to say I am grateful to you. I want to say thank you for saying yes so many years ago. That you have kept your grounds and you have exceeded my expectations. And I hope and I pray that someday you'll be standing here and I'll be sitting with you. I'd like to thank my children. They have made purity a delight. I have never had any fear of bad news. They have made God-honoring choices. And every blessed day, we want to say thank you for these children. We want to say thank you for Samuel Oluwalebisi. Thank you for Ruth, who is representing them today. And to Esther Musimulua, who cannot be here today. Ruth, you let your siblings know that that is a big thank you to all of you.
Everybody, I compete with anyone, and you're looking for I can like